Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rod Gantos.
Yes, people, we are still doing the show today. I was asked by a couple of people on text messages a few minutes ago. But yeah, it just took us a little longer to get here because there's this, kerfuffle going on.
Kerfuffle? I got to look
kerfuffle. You don't know what kerfuffle is?
Kerfuffle. I got to look
Wow, a non-English speaker just informed you about a word called kerfuffle. So this show today is brought to you by the importance of education and command of the English language.
Okay.
Because if you command the English language, you too could sit in front of a mic and do this every Wednesday, right? But no, the kerfuffle was about, there was traffic and there was, people were confused. People were confused. There's this thing going on today about the fact that, the Angels may not be in Anaheim anymore. And so, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get back to that. And I have the perfect person in the studio today to talk about this and other Anaheim
Talk
things.
about timely, yeah.
Right. But yeah, I'm not even going to go there. But anyway, so I would like to welcome to the show. It just seems redundant, man. You should just introduce yourself at this point. I would like to welcome to the show my good friend and, may I say, the most reoccurring guest on the Raad Life radio show, Dr. Jose Moreno. Who claps for himself too?
I am the Justin Timberlake of your.
He is pretty much the Justin Timberlake of the Raad Life
of the Jimmy Fallon show.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, he will tell people that.
I will
in mixed company.
Now
in fact, I believe last time I saw him, he told that to Mayor Tom Tate.
To the mayor.
We did have a problem that we had the wrong Dr. Moreno booked last time. We had there's two of them, that runs all the time.
Yeah, but I took you outside and made sure to give you a piece of my mind on that one. So. Okay. Which I do to Paul all the time, by the way. But anyway, so Jose, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, thanks for inviting me.
I'm sorry I didn't get the plaque on the chair in time, but I'm sure you'll be back. So
Can I just throw in one quick one? We were talking about this while we were waiting for Rad to arrive here.
Hey, it was the kerfuffle.
Dirty
tricks
over
the Angels.
Dirty tricks that never a part of our political tribal war here. When Jose ran, they just accidentally happened to find another candidate named Jose Moreno to put on the ballot, right? So hoping it would split his vote. Now the latest I heard last night in North Dakota, Heidi Heitkamp's trying to hold on to her seat, probably won't. She's behind, and she's a Democrat in a red state. And there's only two areas of support where she always consistently draws upon, where all the Dems do, and it's the Indian tribes. And so they suddenly decided to pass a law in just at the last minute,
all right,
where they said you can't vote if you have a PO box.
Okay, we'll talk about voter suppression. Okay,
yeah,
we're gonna get there. Okay,
I'm just saying,
but let me just say to your first part of your question, or I don't know if it was a question or a soliloquy or a
both.
You're at the speaker's corner of Hyde Park. I'm not exactly sure with you, Paul, these days what you do. But with that being said, answering your quandary.
Yes.
Okay, quandary. There's another one. Okay, is. Not the kerfuffle, though. But the quandary is that, yes, that is one of those dirty tricks. I mean, politics is dirty business in some cases. And when it comes to election season, it's almost like free-for-all. I'm reminded by Looney Tunes where, everybody's it's quiet in the forest and everything is fine and it's all pristine and the bluebirds are flying. And then next thing you know, the clock clicks over to hunting season, and then all you can see is just bullets flying everywhere. There's not indiscriminate.
Bullets are flying everywhere.
Anybody, anything, whatever, and then season's over, and then click, we go back to the little bluebirds in the sky, right?
I don't think we ever go back to the bluebirds.
Well,
anymore,
unfortunately, the nature of our political system these days, yes, we do not go. We used to go back to the bluebirds in the sky. We tend to not do that anymore, but there is this trick about where people find people with different names. I remember a gentleman by the name of Bob Baker that was running in San Clemente, and they ran another person, or had another person called Bob Baker basically run, submit papers, no intention to run, just to confuse the voters. So the first Bob Baker became, I'm the number one Bob Baker, or Bob Baker number one, or something like that. It was really a ridiculous circus. But you also touched on the fact that Jose was elected to city council after. I think you were the first candidate for District 3, right?
Correct.
Right
Yeah,
after
well,
was-
the first
First person to represent District 3, because
Because
this
it
was
was a
right
new-
after
yeah.
the districting,
Right.
which was how long ago, Jose? Like 3 years? 4 years ago?
The voters approved it by over 70% in 2014.
The
and
People's
so
Map?
Right, the People's Map. No, so they approved moving to district elections and also expanding council from 4 members to 6
Right.
with the mayor at large. And then the People's Map was approved by the council in 2015. And 2016 was the first election where we elected people by district.
So it took 2 years to actually go through the process from the approval to go to districts
Right,
to the actual elections to districts.
right.
Okay, and that was a contentious subject as well, right? I mean, that 1 year between 2014 and
Yes.
2015 was very contentious. There's a lot of jockeying, if to use a nicer word, but jockeying for power and influence and
Different
so forth.
maps were
with different
drawn.
maps
Right.
and different things, right?
There was, but a number of the community organizations and community the neighborhoods that often are at odds did coalesce. It was 5 judges who were appointed to serve as the map commission, so to speak, that would recommend a map or series of maps to council to consider. They requested the community. I think over 30 plus maps were submitted from the community side for the judges to consider. They gave the feedback, some of you are kind of close in your mapping. Why don't you all talk and coalesce, see if you can coalesce around one map? And that's what happened. The community of neighbors, neighborhoods, nonprofits aligned together on this map. That's why they called it the People's Map.
Yeah.
It was one map that was then sent forth with unanimity by the judges. The city council approved it in its first iteration by a 5-0 vote, but then they realized that map was not going to serve the interests of the larger interests that have dominated Anaheim politics for a long time, including a couple of incumbents.
Power players and incumbents,
So they decided to mess around with the map, and that's when the people rose up and
So the
fought back.
reason why I'm bringing it up, I know it's a little old territory for us. We've covered this here before at the time, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is because everybody is just hell bent on districting in Orange County now, and there's a certain legal requirements and grounds based on the Voters Act, the Voters Rights Act that certain cases it definitely is applicable. But I have a feeling these days that it's almost being abused in its own self. Like in some cases, the idea of districting is just being thrown out there for again trying to. I don't know that this really applies, but almost the equivalent of gerrymandering. You're trying to basically get there's a group of people that have always been elected from a certain part of town. There really isn't grounds for you to say that this is sort of a cabal of any nature, but you're using the fact that districting is now popular to try to break up anything like that. I mean,
existing power structures.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not even existing power structures. I mean, there's a case for it in San Clemente where we have areas in town where everybody tends to go and live there because of proximity to the ocean. So all of a sudden, because people that basically are on city council all happen to be within a 5-minute walk to the ocean, somebody's basically wanting to use that as a reason for, oh my God, it's everybody is coalesced from the same neighborhood. We need to basically district. And it's kind of an interesting thing, and I'm bringing that up regardless of weighing one way or the other on this. People in San Clemente know where I feel about this right now. Is bring it up because
He's against
Anaheim.
it.
I am against it because of the principles upon which this is being floated, and the fact that it's also not taking into account stuff that basically, has happened in Anaheim, which is that there's a sunshine ordinance, that there is an attempt to basically make sure that the lobbying efforts, the special interests, are at the very least unmasked and clear for everybody to see. There's nothing behind the scenes. There's, in my opinion, there's an interest to basically pursue term limits. There's an interest in pursuing campaign funding reform. With those things in place, I'm all for it. But when you basically all of a sudden want to just district and not have these other safeguards in place, then to me, you have an alternative. You potentially could have an ulterior motive motivating that. But be that as it may, I only bring it up because there is examples in Orange County that people can go to and see how that has played out.
Well,
historically,
those larger reforms, political reforms you're talking about, at least in Anaheim's context, were only possible because we moved to districts. Because if you wanted to push those kind of political reforms, which is the influence of big money,
Yep.
the influence of big lobbyists, the disproportionate influence, I should say, what is now being called the toxic politic of Anaheim, dominated by resort and corporate interests of Disney. We were only able to achieve those reforms because in district environments, you don't need their money to be able to knock on doors and talk to people.
Because it's smaller.
Because it's smaller, so you can walk the neighborhoods. If we don't have district elections, those reforms, some have been put up in the past, including district elections itself. And the big interest didn't want those, so they didn't see the light of day.
So were you only able, I mean, and I guess I'm asking this for my benefit and educating myself as well as people who are listening, but were you only able to achieve some of those things like the Sunshine Ordinance and stuff because you were districted?
I would say it was much more achievable. One. Two, the fact is I wouldn't be on council if it was not an at-large, if it was still at large, or folks who really want to take on the establishment. And so you saw Mayor Tate trying to take on the establishment for 6 years, and he just couldn't get things through, including reforms. And when they tried, they had actually stripped him of that power, including setting the agenda. I mean, the mayor of a city should be able to put agenda items on as he sees fit to make sure that the council is addressing important issues. They took that away from him.
So let me ask you this, Jose. So okay, so I mean, I may be changing my mind on this. Okay, but no,
change alert.
I'm okay with it.
Careful,
you know what?
That's what education does.
Education does,
gets you to understand the world a little different.
This is the danger of educating people. Okay, their minds open up.
So let me say in the context.
Are there
of
any
San
grounds
Clemente,
by which you basically would not be
I would
supportive?
So there's two ways to look at districting. One is if you believe that, which is what we believe fundamentally in Anaheim, that a government closer to the people is the best form of government, right? That's actually the principles of our American democracy.
Yeah, I agree.
So to that extent, for us, a city of 360,000 people, to be in an at-large system and being such a large, expansive city, it only makes sense. So if we did, which we did see in Anaheim, many of the candidates or even the electeds living in a certain part of town, you're never going to see them in the other part of town.
Correct.
They're never going to see the other part of town unless it's for a ribbon cutting ceremony. So they don't live the daily experience. San Clemente may be different. Maybe it's a much smaller community or whatnot.
65,000.
So the other side of it is, well, is there a record or does data suggest that there is a polarized electorate in a municipality? For us in Anaheim, under the California Voting Rights Act, we filed a lawsuit that the Latino electorate, not so much that we didn't have Latinos being elected, it's the Latino electorate would vote for a particular set of candidates, and they could never influence the election because they were so outnumbered as a minority. So in an at-large system, if you put folks in a district system, there's greater opportunity for that minority to influence the election.
Wouldn't then though the definition of electorate in that particular case be super important? Because would you consider business interest as an electorate? Because what the reason why I'm asking,
no, because business doesn't vote.
Exactly.
It may be a person in the eyes of the Supreme Court in terms of financing, but business, Levi's doesn't get a vote. Right?
People that are
their money influences the vote.
I'm sorry, San Clemente, but people that are in favor of or against super living homes, is that an electric base?
Well, it's a constituency because businesses, small business owners, property owners are a constituency. But that group home, the entity, the LLC, doesn't go and submit a ballot.
People against it that feel that maybe that interest was not represented at the city council by those who were sitting there. And then how long? I mean, they did do a survey and took it back 20 years. And said that people are all from the same area. And this is my thing. To me, you know, everybody, people may not agree with me, but everybody that happens to start living in San Clemente on the inland side, a lot of them basically, understandably, aspire to be maybe closer to the ocean. I mean, unless, you live in California, for God's sake, right? So you may, if you have the opportunity, you move closer to the ocean. But now all of a sudden, because you moved closer to the ocean, now you're basically part of this, isolated neighborhood where everybody comes from. So it's an interesting discussion that's going on in San Clemente.
Could it be economic diversity that they're trying to get? So maybe it's the wealthy people who live on the ocean dominating politics?
I mean, let's just call it like it is. What it is that there's certain people that have certain beliefs regarding homeless, regarding sober living homes or non-sober living homes, regarding issues of that nature, those sort of hot button issues that are all over the county. And they basically feel that the city council hasn't addressed them with the severity that they wanted them addressed. And so therefore they're finding an excuse to basically claim that everybody who's currently sitting on city council and has been for the last 20 years comes from a certain particular area, which basically makes the need for districting because other areas are not being represented. So we'll see how it fleshes out.
Right. So I could see the sentiment. The question is, what recourse do you have to do that? One, you have the political mechanism of they could, folks who feel that you should go to districting can and should start to get a petition drive going to put it on the ballot for voters to decide. They can go to city council and say, look, here's a petition we have for you. Can you just put it on the ballot yourselves as council members? The other, which is what we did in Anaheim, because we did both of those things. We went to city council, we collected a lot of testimonials from people, and the council just pretty much summarily denied us for over 3 decades actually. So we ended up using the lever of the law, which is called the California Voting Rights Act, which has certain protections for certain classes of folks. And if you find, in our context, racially polarized voting, then that violates the law if you have an at-large system, because you're essentially disenfranchising that vote through that kind of system.
Can you repeat that, Jose? Under the California Voting Rights Act, there's certain categories. Right? It's defined. It's not just wide open space, right? I mean, okay,
dog
like I would
lovers
assume
versus
one of them is
non-dog.
basically underrepresentation, ethnicity.
It's not ideology.
Yeah.
It's not party. It's basically a law to protect racial ethnic polarization or to be
Minority
an antidote.
representation.
Minority representation.
Right.
Really, minority enfranchisement of the vote. Again, it's not about who gets elected. It's who is the electorate trying to elect that is systematically left out. So, for example, in Anaheim, 40% of the electorate is Anglo or white, identified as such. They identify themselves. About 33% Latino. So if there's racially polarized voting, which means that Latinos tend to vote for Latinos, whites for whites, because it's not just Latinos who vote for themselves, it's whites vote for whites, then essentially Latinos will never get a chance to influence the election, even if we have 100% voter
Because
turnout.
of the percentage identified.
No, because of that,
Yeah.
you're systemically institutionalized as a minority in the voting process. So the at-large system then doesn't resolve that. So a district system allows for a diversification and democratization of the electorate, which then gives an opportunity for that electorate to influence at least having one council seat that they can influence, or maybe 2. In Anaheim, we have 3. The Latino electorate is so expansive now around the city that I feel really good about just basically the enfranchisement of everyone's vote.
Can I give you
But
another?
from that
But
perspective.
the California voters, what is it? California Protection?
California Voting Rights Act
Voting
passed
Rights
in
Act,
2001, and
That-
every city that has been sued
Yeah.
has lost when they've taken it full court to trial. So no city has beaten a lawsuit against the California Voting Rights
Can I
Act.
give you one other? This is not necessarily my opinion, but we had some good Republican types in here a while ago, and this was their argument against districting anywhere, is that it increases the tribalization of our community.
Yeah, I agree.
You've got one group that you only represent one group and not the community at large. So if somebody wants to do something in somebody else's district, or somebody else wants to do something that's going to impact the whole community, and people are saying, well, it doesn't help me, it helps them.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
I think that's a rational argument, and I would ask those good Republicans to join the movement to abolish the Electoral College.
Yeah.
So
Touche.
Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on that good Republican's perspective, that's why we have congressional seats, Senate districts, state assembly, state senate, county is broken up into districts. So really, again, I go with a good Republican, a good Democrat, a person who believes honestly in democracy, would want to, again, bring government as close to its people as possible so that they could influence how their government responds to them, how it treats them, and or how they can hold it accountable. And, if you have a city of 360,000 people and you have, as Disney is now putting in $1.5 million, it seems, every cycle, over $1 million in each cycle, how do you possibly get a candidate who's a local, neighborhood-centered, doesn't want to deal with a lot of special interests.
How does districting stop that though? Because I mean, I'm going to throw another elephant. I'm going to point out another elephant in the room, and it's something that I know you're somewhat familiar with, relevant to basically your position as sitting on the board of the Transportation Corridor Authority, the TCA. Is there are people that are concerned in San Clemente, given the timing of this, that makes it easier for somebody with a special interest, special project, the TCA trying to run a toll road through San Clemente, to basically only go in and carry favor and influence with those who are in the district in which that toll road is going to run. How does districting
just to buy that one little slice?
Right.
To buy that one little
how does it doesn't the divide and conquer focus that influence from that special interest, regardless of what the city is?
Well, special interest, I mean, it's always going to be there. But at least in Anaheim, I'm the rep. But I'm elected as the rep by my council. Right. So I represent the city because I'm voted in by the council itself. We all get nominated, or we nominate ourselves to serve on different agencies. So I chose this agency.
And for those who don't know, the Transportation Corridor Authority is a joint power agency that has representation from all the cities in Orange County. So, yes, the city council basically selects within themselves who's going to basically represent the city in different agencies.
And they're the ones who run the toll roads.
Right. They're the ones who run the toll roads. And
Rod hates the toll roads.
The toll roads basically are an agency that was supposed to return the stuff to public use, and now basically are threatening potential quality of life in San Clemente.
So I think to get to your concern, the question of corruption and the role of big money and big interests disproportionately in our politics and ultimately in how we get governed or how we govern is going to be there. To me, districts is a way to mitigate that undue influence.
Is it effective?
Well, I'm here.
Okay.
I'll be honest. I don't mean to say that arrogantly. In the city council in Anaheim, for decades, you could not raise a question in any way about Disney without getting pummeled, or even having the idea that you might get reelected once you decide to say no to Disney on something, or other big corporate interests in the resort industry. So you basically, as we saw with the mayor for 6 years, you're just you're spitting in the wind.
Right.
But even with that, the bully pulpit of the mayorship allowed him to at least have some success, very minimal, but nonetheless success in stopping major things. But he couldn't stop $700 million in corporate tax giveaways to the industry. The people finally got the word about this in a district environment now. The neighborhoods that I represent said, yeah, we were promised all these incredible assets and resources to come out to us, but yet our streets look no different than, with no disrespect to other cities, right? Santa Ana, Fullerton, Stanton, our surrounding cities, you would think our streets would look much different, that we would have a lot more youth programs and community centers. Again, even 2 years in, we still only have one public swimming pool in our entire city. 90% of our kids are on free and reduced lunch. 50% of the people in my district live with $50,000 or less in the household.
One public swimming pool in
the entire city.
In a city of how much population?
360,000.
One public swimming pool.
That doesn't sound like the happiest place on earth.
Well, it's tough. Nice. I'll say that. Let's say the happiest part is confined to a 5-mile radius, and the focus has been.
If you can buy an e-ticket.
The focus has been on the children of tourists because they're going to bring us money, as many people say. But at the end of the day, our own children. There's a reason why Bruno Serrato is the CNN hero, right? Love him to death.
Sir Bruno.
But there's a reason why Bruno needs to feed 1,000 kids a day.
In Anaheim.
In Anaheim.
Yeah.
It's like, how?
Motel
why would you see that? And why would we see 4,500 kids in Anaheim school districts living in unstable housing?
Within a stone's throw away, by the way.
Within a stone's throw.
Stone's throw away.
So those kind of questions can't get asked, right? When you're in an at-large system, because all this money is going to come at you, and there's no way for you to reach the audience.
You may ask the question, but it's numbed.
It's numbed. And in a district environment, folks resonate with it, and they could get 20 mailers saying the opposite, but they're living it. So when they get glossy pictures of how great somebody's an advocate for them, or how they've gotten these parks and how Disney's great, which they are. I mean, they're great, but they're very limited in what they've been doing in terms of really those resources getting out. So that's why we're here. So I would say districts.
So has it created a different dialogue with Disney and any of the others?
A completely different dialogue. And you see Disney now threatening things, threatening to pull projects. They said they're not going to build the 4-star hotel simply because we as a city council said where you're building that hotel is actually not covered by the agreement we signed with you, so you wouldn't be eligible. And they threw a tantrum, frankly, and said, then we're not building the hotel. Hard to believe that they wouldn't, knowing Star Wars Land is opening in 2019, that they're expecting millions more visitors because of that. that why wouldn't you in primetime property build a hotel?
So what are we talking? It's an interesting road that we've gotten to get to this point in the show, and I think, as usually happens organically, it makes the point of this. Anybody who's paying attention to the elections in Orange County, microcosm to the country, these are realities that happen in every place. This the corruption, the influence, the lobbying, the power peddling, all of that stuff is happening. So, pay attention. Don't take the soundbite. Don't look for 2 seconds about what somebody tells you. Go delve into it. And if you're not, why aren't you? Because this is stuff that affects you in one form or the other eventually. You've been on there for 2 years. I was there when they pulled out of that bag, and you ended up basically having to run again in 2 years to basically adjust the situation on the city council.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of people in that room that were not happy that you were going to have to do that. But so how has it been, Jose, the experience of the last 2 years? Because you haven't shied away from controversy, I would say, or not. You haven't shied away from being vocal about what you thought was the right thing, weighing in on multiple variables versus just leaning one way or the other in the last 2 years. You didn't just sit quietly for 2 years.
I did not. And I'm pursuing continuously, and that's what perhaps makes a lot of people nervous, which it shouldn't. It's about we identify something that seems to conflict with what we think to be true, and we try to resolve it, right? We try to resolve these conflicts. I don't mean fights. I mean these reconcile conflicting notions. And the one that I've been pursuing doggedly that council members on the Disney side of the discussion, I'll say, and Disney themselves and the resort industry themselves, when I've sat with them, I did reach out to them to sit with their advisory boards. And I said, here's the juxtaposition that I need you to help me reconcile. We uphold the resort industry as something that we have to keep investing in because we get hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. We actually get $80 million in revenue surplus, which is a good amount, a very good amount. That said, we invested $1.5 billion in the resort district to build up the infrastructure to then allow these businesses to really grow, including Disney. So that's why in the last 4 years, there's been 18 hotels that have been built without subsidies in the resort industry, in the resort district. So I've said we have these record profits, record bed tax revenues, but yet the poverty in Anaheim keeps increasing. So how do we reconcile that? And the more poverty that you have, the more that stretches and really creates pressures on the social system, the social fabric of the city. That means you are going to need more affordable housing. You're going to need
services, support.
You're going to need more support in the schools for kids whose parents are in working poverty and can't be home to support them the way they would want to. You're going to need more after-school programs, more facilities of community centers. Ideally, more pools that can get the kids to understand and engage in community, learning how to swim. That's a big issue in our community, learning how to swim because of the safety issue. So you have all these other stressors, and then, of course, you need more police. Because when you concentrate people, whether they're poor or it has nothing to do with race or class, it's just when you concentrate people, conflict's going to arise. I mean, that's just basic criminal theory that I studied as an undergrad. So if you're concentrating so many people because they can't afford to live anywhere else, then you're going to need more police to help kind of keep people calm and also assure that the criminal element doesn't go in there and get hidden. And so you need resources for that. And the resources, I believe, that come to the city have not been managed well historically. And those are the same people that then Disney props up as their candidates that look after the economy really well. And they have not looked after the economy well. You don't give away $700 million in future tax revenue while you have a $450 million debt obligation with your pensions, a promise we need to keep.
So what was the reaction when you reached out?
It was very... It was tense, but at the same time, wall barrier breaking, I guess, because I just shared. They never gave me an opportunity to speak before the election. They assumed a lot of things about me because of things that I've been engaged in or how blogs have characterized our work. Yeah. And so when I sat in front of them, the SOAR Advisory Board, the Visit Anaheim Hotel Board, which Disney chairs, we sat there and I said, here's our vision. Here's the juxtaposition. Help me figure out working poverty in our city. If you don't want to pay more wages, then who's going to help people afford housing? Who's going to fill the gap, right? If our schools are overcrowded in certain parts of our city but not as crowded on the other part, that means we need busing. Who's going to pay for that busing? Our schools are struggling with resources. So those basic questions I told them is where I'm at. And I'm not looking to pick a fight with the industry. I'm not anti-Disney. I'm just simply saying, Disney, do you feel any responsibility towards addressing the social conditions that your employees have to confront when they come home from work?
You know what? You know what's interesting, Jose, is it almost comes down to this: we all live on the same planet. Those interests that you basically are talking about, they all live in the same neighborhood. So it's like it's in your own neighborhood. So unless all you think of is what's behind your gate, how do you turn a blind eye to what's happening with your brother or sister down the street?
Well,
and if there's anything you can do to improve quality for everybody, why not?
Well, I don't know if that's true. The executives of these industries do not live in Anaheim, at least that I'm aware of. And if they do, they certainly don't live in the flatlands of Anaheim, and they certainly don't live in District 3. The executives, the top executives. Now, we have managers, supervisors, and other folks who do live in our areas, who are awesome folks. But the struggle here isn't with that category of Disney. There's Disneyland and its people, who are awesome people, who work there, both the folks who provide the services, their service sector, but also the supervisorial. All great, wonderful people who moved up. But at the end of the day, it's the decisions that are made at the very top in collaboration with the political leadership that they funded to put in place that makes you wonder, is the tail wagging the dog here? And I think what happened here is that we basically said that's going to stop. We as a city, as city council representatives...
Which is really your role as representatives of the people.
That's right. We're the negotiators for the city. You're the negotiators for your shareholders. They have no responsibility to the city.
So we understand that is your interest, and you understand this is ours.
Right.
And not having a conversation doesn't lead to anything.
Correct.
Having a conversation could potentially lead to some sort of resolution.
And that's what I've done.
On compromise, right?
And that's what I did, and have not been invited back.
So here you are running again.
Yes.
For re-election. How is it going?
It is nastier than last time.
Are you on the ballot in November?
I'm on the ballot in November.
Okay.
Voice of OC story came out today. Disney is again in tune to spend at least $1 million in the election. They're already close to it.
Wow.
And what's disappointing about that is, if you remember about a month ago or so, they pulled the agreements, the subsidy agreement for their hotel. They pulled the local tax exemption for 45 years, which many of us took exception to. So to their credit, they pulled those. And the mayor, if you recall, said, this is a reset button for all of us. I met with the president of Disney. I said, I'm looking forward to really turning the corner here into developing a reciprocal relationship here between the city and the resort, as perhaps it was some decades ago, which he was appalled at what he called the toxic environment of Anaheim politics. He says, it's just, these subsidies have created a toxic environment. So my request of him was, you should really consider not getting engaged in Anaheim politics, electoral politics. No candidate is wishing harm on Disney. We all want Disney to flourish. And what we're saying is, but we voted in bed taxes and resort taxes a while ago. We don't feel you need the people's money to continue to grow as a business. You're not a small mom and pop. You're not a startup. That's been the rub. And so I asked him, if you really want to get rid of the toxicity in our politics, you should really remove your brand from that toxicity. He said he would consider it. Unfortunately, within a week after we severed the deals that supposedly hit the reset button, they put in another $300,000 into the SOAR PAC to basically try to win a majority of the council back. So they have continued in the toxicity of the politic, and the reason why it's worse this time is just this past week, the candidate that they are helping to support and fund, Mitch Caldwell, put out a really nasty negative smear piece on myself and my family, very personal. And second, they put out a hit piece calling me not a true Democrat. Somehow, like that matters in an election that's nonpartisan. So that's Disney money that's mixed in there. They're going to say it's not, but as I've always said about politics, if you have a cup and it's got dirty water in it, and you're saying that your money's clean money, and you're pouring that money into that cup, your water's just as dirty now, right?
You don't get to throw mud without getting some on yourself.
Right, and it's unfortunate because Disney, we all want them to flourish. So for them to risk their brand name and the image that they want to uphold, that we all want, is unfortunate.
But you know, the question then lends itself is like, well, who's benefiting from this?
Right.
Is it Disney? that's really benefiting this? I mean, it sounds like they are taking somewhat of a risk, whatever percentile, whether it's calculated risk or not. But somebody's benefiting from this. I mean, that money had to be put to somebody's use. Are we talking again in terms of consultants and lobbyists and stuff? I mean, who benefits from this stuff?
That's why
because that's an industry. $300,000 is no joke.
That's no joke. That's right. Somebody's making a lot of money. But when you look at it from, again, a corporate perspective, business perspective, if you will, when they pulled and they said they were not going to do the hotel because they pulled the subsidy. We don't want the subsidy for it. And then they said, we're just not going to build a hotel at all. If you read their press statement, it has a caveat. It says, under the current conditions and climate regarding incentives.
So once we change the city council, then maybe we come back.
That no longer allow this project to pencil out. We are withdrawing, where we will no longer build a hotel. Pretty much saying, as long as these conditions exist. What do they do then? They then invest $1 million into getting the city council majority back. I assure you the first thing on the agenda will be restoring those subsidies and that local tax exemption.
It's called the art of the takeaway.
It's the art of the takeaway. That's right.
They pull it back and say, you're going to miss out on this.
Right.
But we're doing it, from the kindness of our own hearts. And I'm not picking on Disney. I think this is just as old a trick as time.
And yet the irony, as shown in our next show,
unfortunate, because at the end of the day, you live in a neighborhood, you live with people, you exist in an environment.
Right. Well, Disney's not a nonprofit, and I remind people of that. They tell me, do you not like Disney? I said, no, they're a for-profit entity. They're doing what they exist to do. They make kids happy to make money. Bottom line, at least that's what it's become nowadays. So I don't begrudge that.
It was always like that.
Yeah. So I don't begrudge that. I mean, that's business.
Yeah.
But that's why you need honest elected officials who will then negotiate vigorously for the people themselves. Disney is not going to advocate for the people. They're going to advocate for their shareholders. That's what their LLC requires. We are required to advocate for the people. And so if you have candidates who like my opponent, through a PAC, is being supported to the tune of $240,000, in addition to the campaign contributions he's receiving directly, then is he really going to advocate for the people, or is he going to advocate for the PAC that's supporting him?
You're making my case for me about being weary about districts, right?
Well, because of districts, an army of volunteers that we have, and I hate to use that metaphor, but it's a community collective of people who are coming together, knocking on doors, saying, we will not allow big money to take our seat. That's how they're talking about it, and it is our seat. So if we didn't have districts, we have no chance. We have no chance. That's what we've seen historically.
How do you feel about your chances?
I feel really good. When our opponent has to use really insidious negative smear attacks on family, then you know that they've hit the bottom of the barrel of desperation. And again, unfortunately, the collateral damage there is Disney's brand. Angels have hosted, one of their executives hosted a fundraiser for that PAC. It tarnishes their image. And I just think the people are tired of that.
So really quick, because we started with this before we end, let's talk about the Angels.
Yeah.
So what happened? What do you think should happen? Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's saying throw the bums out from the city council because they just lost us the Angels in Anaheim. What do you say to them?
Well, a couple of things. The Angels had a 1-year opt-out clause that was in place for 2014, I believe. So by 2014, they had to decide within that 1-year window whether they were going to
stay or go.
Opt out of the current lease.
Right.
Opting out doesn't mean you're going to leave. It just means we want to reopen and renegotiate our lease. That's what it means. And if they're not happy with that renegotiation, then they might leave. Also, it allows us to look back and say, wait a minute, what is the city truly getting as a benefit from having a professional sports team in our stadium? So it allows. So I don't begrudge that. But what's unfortunate is that a 1-year window to do that. The council, again, funded by huge corporate interests, including Disney themselves and Angels Baseball at that time, extended their opt-out clause to 3 years. Mm-hmm. Right, so that's why
they couldn't make up their minds. So give me another 3 years.
So give the Angels a 3-year window to basically play with us. Right. Fortunately, I think their executives were not interested in playing with the city at the time. They were offered a really sweet deal by a council that was very pro, almost like their spokespeople, almost. And the people rose up and said no along with the mayor. And so that deal got stopped. So there's been no real negotiation since, except a year ago, Artie Moreno announced, and I have it right here if you want he announced, we're committed to Angel Stadium. They said, we're not going to use our opt-out.
What was the date on that?
That was in February 2017 with the current council.
Okay.
He announced
We are committed to Angel Stadium.
We are committed to Angel Stadium in February 2017. This current council is in place already, so it can't be that we did something. And I've had great conversations with Angels baseball over the year, talking about community engagement opportunities. They're really interested in getting more involved in our community, seeing how they could be more helpful.
So what happened?
So well, one is they have, again, their opt-out window was extended, and yesterday was their deadline to let us know if they're going to opt out or at least choose the opt-out clause to then renegotiate. On one hand, you could say it was a business decision that they want to keep all options open, as they say. On the other, you got to say, why did you wait till the middle of October to announce it right before an election? So it does smack of politics.
So did they opt out? Is that what they did?
They've opted out.
Yesterday.
So they have 1 year left on their contract moving forward through 2019, the 2019 baseball season. After that, there's no contract for them to stay.
Yeah, the timing is
at Angel
interesting
Stadium.
because the minute they opted out, social media just exploded about let's get rid of vote those bombs out.
Yeah, so you got.
So you guys drove them out. We got to get rid of you guys. That's the argument.
So you got Disney saying we're not going to build a luxury hotel because of this council. You got the Angels, who didn't say that, but the Angels just said we want to explore all of our options. But Chris Murray jumped on it right away and said it's because of this council. Again, this council's been working.
Interest. I'm telling you, there's a cottage industry of people that benefit from basically riling things up. Before we went on the show, we were talking about how people basically, what is the reason for like this sort of animosity, and who makes money? We talked about media basically making money. Yeah, there's a cottage industry of consultants, lobbyists, special interests that basically they are the ones, the old Wizard of the Oz, ignore the man behind the curtain. Those are the people basically that are lining their own pockets with taxpayer money, with legal lawsuits, and basically you need to wake up, voter. And you need to pay attention to what's going on, whether it's in your own district, in your town, your own county. But you know what? Look past your own wall, because there are examples like what's happening in Anaheim. I've been watching that since the day of the People's Map. And what's going to play out right now will be the second election cycle after districting, and we will see whether special interests actually will regain hold, or the system will hold and the ship will continue to steer in the right direction or not. Jose, we got to go, but I will tell you, man, I wish you luck. I know that a lot of people down in San Clemente appreciate, regardless of their we may disagree with each other on all kinds of stuff. They appreciate your position, and it's just the right position. It's not a a rough kind of like I'm just going to be obstinate or not. It's kind of like, wait a minute,
right?
Hold up, let's look at this.
Right. So I appreciate that, because especially if you're in San Clemente, just be mindful that the lobbyists that we have been exposing in Anaheim,
they're the same people behind the toll road.
Are the same people that unfortunately the TCA has hired. And I've been trying to kind of get at that. And so certainly those lobbyists also want to see me removed from my city council seat so that they don't have someone representing Anaheim that way.
We don't want to cut you off, but we got to stay tuned until next time. I hope that you fight. If you believe in the cause, go fight the fight and turn out and vote.
If you're in Anaheim, you're District 3, vote for Jose Moreno.
Or if you know
he
people,
has my vote. I unfortunately don't live in District 3. So.
But tell your friends in District 3.
Yeah, and San Clemente, thank you. I know a lot of you guys reached out to me when you knew it was going to be on the show, regardless of whether we agree or disagree on a lot of different things. I know you guys all were sending your regards to Jose, so thank you for doing that. I know I appreciate that, and I know he does.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week on another episode of The Raad Life. Never boring.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Rod Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.